The year is 2012. Black Ops 2 just dropped and you can't seem to escape it. Every YouTuber is posting about it, and everyone at school won't shut up about it. You probably already know where this is going. Like everyone else, you somehow finally managed to convince your parents to let you buy Black Ops 2. Despite that unsettling M rating on the front, Black Ops 2 didn't ruin Call of Duty because it was bad. Rather, it was ahead of its time, and this would be the moment we all became addicted to a standard that Call of Duty could never reproduce again. Twenty 2012 was a huge year for gaming. Some of the biggest memes at the time were from or associated closely with Call of Duty, like MLG, the hit marker sound, and Mom. Call of Duty wasn't a part of the culture at the time. It was the culture. The popularity of these memes resulted in more eyes being on the Call of Duty franchise than ever. The previous release, Black Ops 1, would be one of the best-selling Call of Duties of all time, with over 30 million copies sold. Treyarch didn't just need to make a good game, they needed to make a legacy. To say the expectations were just high was an understatement. At this point, with Call of Duty being at the top of the food chain for gaming, they were the trendsetters. When developers needed ideas to spin off, they looked at COD. Every new Call of Duty release meant they needed to make something newer and better than the previous one. Black Ops 1 was set in the Cold War era. Most companies would naturally make the sequel take place some years after the Cold War, but this wasn't most companies. This was the best-selling game franchise for 16 consecutive years. The company that made $775 million in the first 5 days of its Modern Warfare release. So Treyarch did what they did best, and set the bar miles higher than before. This is where it takes an unexpected turn. They didn't try to max out one mode, they tried to simultaneously max out all three. The Black Ops 2 campaign starts around 1986, obviously following the timeline of the previous Black Ops. But Treyarch couldn't just do that. They introduced the two storylines in one campaign, with the second storyline taking place all the way in 2025, which is weird to think about now that 2025 is actually in the past. This was basically a two campaign for one deal. Story 1 goes as follows. 1986 Nicaragua, Alex Mason and Frank Woods were sent on a mission to capture a powerful drug lord in the area, Raul Menendez. Instead of just capturing the kingpin and taking him, missing him, and fatally striking his sister Josefina. This one bullet would really be the straw that gave the camel back shots, or whatever this, and would basically be the start of Raul's villain arc, which will be really important in a second. After this, Mason and Woods have to continue serving in top secret CIA missions. Now, this is where our demon Raul comes into play. This dude was not gonna let the death of his sister just slide. He went from pushing packs on Snapchat to becoming one of the most influential revolutionary figures and top enemy of the Cold War. He went from a level 1 crook to a level 99 mafia boss. And now the US didn't have easy access to him like they previously did. At this point, you're probably just thinking he's just an evil, dude looking to make some money. But his reasons were low-key valid. I mean, after having his sister 200 pumped right in front of him by Woods, he would grow to despise and resent the United States. Rightfully so. This is what makes Raul unique from any other Call of Duty antagonist, since the game makes it nearly impossible to not see his side of the story, and almost sympathize with him in a way. He wouldn't have even been in this situation of trapping and pushing packs on Snapchat had it not been for the government taking over his country and limiting his ability to actually make some money. Anywho, Menendez wasn't the only one who felt that the US was actually doing more harm than good in their country. As the years went on, he would advocate for chaos through propaganda, various movements, and some more calm little drone strikes in Los Angeles, literally using China as a pawn to start a second Cold War between China and the US. He simply just wants an end to the dominance that the US had over any other country. And that's not to say there wasn't any personal gain on the table, because he was very open about how he wanted revenge for the wrongful killing of his sister Josefina. Okay, if you ask me,
No one asked you.
Shut up.
Whatever.
In my opinion, Raul was honestly a G for this move, which is a good example of how Treyarch made the characters have so much depth, because the entire point of an antagonist is you're supposed to disagree with them. Obviously, having a family member killed is horrible, but if your first instinct to get revenge is to cause the collapse of the largest and most powerful nation in the world, that's pretty badass. You don't necessarily have to agree with him, but you have to admit he's definitely more than just your typical supervillain. Raul's character alone introduces a side that most games don't even think about. Most games just have you follow a linear storyline, without ever thinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it. In this case, seeing Raul's motivations and intentions really makes you think if he actually is the bad guy that he's made out to be. As Raul continues making progress towards his ultimate plan of ending the US's dominance, Mason and Woods are seeing all of the chaos he's causing. They make it their ultimate goal to stop him. Mason and Woods would finally drop into Panama to raid Manuel Noriega's compound, who was a high-ranking Panamanian military officer. The motivation for raiding this compound was that they actually had intel that Raul had set up camp here, and this would be the perfect chance to finally put an end to his chaos. This is where things take a pretty drastic turn. During the assault of the compound, Mason is sitting on the roof with the sniper, looking at who he thinks to be Menendez. Who he believes to be Menendez has a bag over his head, so he can't exactly confirm it. Excitedly, he takes the shot that he's been waiting to take for years. Soon he'd realize this was not a mistake that you could just respawn and redo. But we come to find out that he just one-tapped his own homeboy. Menendez really showed how much he bossed up since the last interaction they had with Woods and Mason, since he was playing psychological games now, knowing that this move would make their team turn against each other. This is some real life altering stuff. I mean, he just killed his own best friend, bro. Just playing this mission alone messed me up. Even worse, the dude that they were trying to kill together got away again. After 2 failed attempts, killing the wrong person twice, with one being your own homie, you would think it's time to just call it wraps. But no, because it wouldn't be Black Ops 2 if it was just a mission-to-mission story. This is where we would see a nearly half a century long grudge play out, taking place all the way in 2025. You're now playing as David, the son of Alex Mason. Raul is still running strong, and he's more powerful than ever. Not only has he successfully made the anti-Western movement larger than ever, but he's recognized globally as the leader of it. This is where we see the result of his efforts plotting China and the US against each other to hopefully spark another war. Since this was taking place in 2025, which was technically the future at the time of this game's release, there is a weird obsession with drones, but if I'm being honest, they aren't really too far off. Playing as David Mason was the first glimpse we really got to the alternate endings that were possible. As you went on different missions all over the world, your choices in those missions would impact the ending. This set of missions would be some of my favorite missions from the campaign. It was nice to be in a location that wasn't all dry and dusty. The aspect of controlling the drones and different soldiers was a really unique feature at the time. It made the story feel even more detailed and not so linear. Even though at this point so much has already happened, keeping the story more engaging than ever, everything about these missions, story-wise, gun, and just environment, made it feel like you were actually the main character in a movie, rather than just playing a game. The campaign would be cinematic, but also extremely replayable. Anyways, after all the dilly-dallying in the missions, the game offers you an ultimatum. And both outcomes are horrible. You can A, kill him, which leads to the world basically falling out in civil unrest, large and violent riots everywhere, resulting in the White House being burnt down. Or B, spare him, which leads to him being imprisoned, where he eventually breaks out and kills Frank Woods himself. This is a would you rather go to hell or super hell question. Either way, it reinforces the tragic reality of war. There really is no winning a war, which seems to be a reoccurring theme throughout the game, and you'll see more of that later in the zombies section. Okay, I know that was a lot to take in, pause, but I just summarized it to the best of my ability, meaning there was a lot I didn't mention, for the sake of saving your time and my time. Like, just imagine being 13 trying to process all of this at 2 in the morning. The different possible endings gave the campaign even more replayability than it already had, since most people typically replay just on different difficulties. Now, in addition to that, they could attempt the different endings. Once you've fully experienced a campaign with this many layers, it's hard to respect anything less than it, since it all just feels rushed. With a campaign story and gameplay that deep and layered, most people would assume they put all the time and resources into the campaign. Like I said earlier, this is the same company that made over $3 billion in just 1 year, and held the best-selling title for over 16 years in a row. You don't just earn that status through being like everyone else. The Black Ops 2 multiplayer is commonly referred to as one of the best multiplayers of all time, and it works for 3 reasons. It gave you the option to be cracked at the game, creative, or just toxic. I mean, sometimes you could pull off all 3. Everything from the gameplay, game modes, to maps were obviously made with the intention of leaving a legacy, and I can already hear you itching to bring up the slow movement. And I will agree, it was pretty slow, but the gameplay actually complemented it, making them work together and create some intense moments, bringing me to my next iconic aspect of the multiplayer, being quickscoping and trickshotting. If you play Black Ops 2, there is no way you had never heard of quickscoping or trickshotting. I mean, you just could not escape it. This was the peak of quickscoping for Call of Duty. The slower movement made every gunfight just 10 times more important, making all the clips even more impressive, since without the ability to just jetpack out, if you missed your shot, you paid the price. The Ballista and DSR are recognized as some of the best snipers in all of gaming history. Those snipers unironically built some careers for people. Getting kills, regardless of which gun you used in Black Ops 2, felt more meaningful and rewarding, as a result of the clunky and slow movement that punished you for making the smallest mistake. The score streaks were also one of the most iconic aspects. I mean, the grin I had on my face, stealing someone else's care package, which just shows an element that modern CODs no longer do, which is playing into the infamous, toxic, and disrespectful side of Call of Duty. There was a pretty large variety of weapons like in any Call of Duty. It didn't really feel like any gun was useless or objectively bad, because everything had a use, which with the ability to create classes curated to your playstyle, and without worrying about being at a huge disadvantage for not using whatever gun is in the meta at the time. Okay, let's take a step back and go over the maps, since I didn't exactly do them justice. This is where Call of Duty would go on a generational run, printing some of the best maps we would ever see. Black Ops 2 would introduce some of the most recognized and loved maps of all time, like Raid, Studio, and Hijacked. The map selection as a whole actually felt intentional. They considered playability, but also the relevance of these maps to the time frame that Black Ops 2 was set in. Nothing really felt out of place. And even if they didn't exactly match up with the campaign storyline, they still felt like they belonged. I can confidently say that I don't regret buying any of the DLC for this game. The $15 that you paid for a few multiplayer and zombies maps that weren't just reskins actually felt worth it. These maps were detailed, but not overly complicated, which is what made them age so well. And this is made evident with the return of a lot of these maps in newer Call of Duties, because Call of Duty themselves recognized the success and perfection they reached with these maps. If you watched YouTube at this time, you know this was basically prime phase, way before they started doing OnlyFans or whatever they do now. The content from gaming clans in general on Black Ops 2 was the peak of Call of Duty content. Aside from the quickscoping montages that were sick, some of the craziest trick shots would be hit.
I can't believe it, Mile!
the trick shots alone on this game and montages in general stood out from any game. The wide selection of maps honestly just made it feel like they were expecting a montage to be made, and it added a unique feel and look to the content that was produced within Black Ops 2. You can't tell me they weren't in the studio working on Hijacked, not expecting someone to hit a 720 Sui, insta-swap off the side of the boat. Black Ops 2 created players. More importantly, creators. The multiplayer all around was polished. The maps were iconic not only because of the visual appeal and often ignored balance between detail and avoiding unneeded clutter, but they were the ideal map. They had simple and strong flow that kept players from getting lost but still creating intense gunfights. The gunplay alone would go down in history as some of the best that Call of Duty has ever produced, because the balance of the weapons that didn't incentivize one set meta allowed people to play the way they wanted to, not just using whatever was the strongest gun or strongest utility at the time. The map selection and balanced gunplay would create the ideal game for players to not only trickshot and quickscope, but create some of the most creative and coolest edits of any modern game. The content produced within this game would blow up so much that the game would be recognized by people who had never even played the game themselves. I mean, that's just how you know the game is bigger than itself. Up until now, the two most iconic and important parts of any Call of Duty game have gone above and beyond everyone's expectations. This impressive release would be a double-edged sword. They made a huge jump in improvement, but it was not suitable at all for the franchise to replicate and continue cranking up the intensity for future releases. The bar was set to a level that their competitors and even themselves would never be able to reach again. At this point, if the campaign didn't provide enough content and lore for you somehow, I have good and bad news for you. The good news is they made sure the storyline of zombies was just as rich. The bad news is you need serious help. Treyarch started from the ground up with Black Ops 2 Zombies. It was still the round-based arcade-style mode, but they leaned more into the storyline. This is where we see Zombies as a whole shift from just a bonus game mode to an entire universe in itself. The core Zombies maps offered a few different locations, like Town, Farm, and Bus Depot. These three had the classic survival zombies gameplay. Bus Depot introduced a new fan-favorite game mode, Transit. Transit mode started you off at Bus Depot, where you would try and survive the first few rounds and eventually get out of the actual bus depot. After you leave the bus depot, a bus spawns, and this bus travels around the map. It brings you to the main locations. This was basically just typical public transportation, but cursed. Or I guess just regular public transportation. Most maps let you use the pack-a-punch machine after you unlock that area, but in typical transit fashion, it was way more complicated than it needed to be. Here would be where we meet some of the lovable Zombies crew members, like Abigail, Samuel, Marlton, and Russman. They all have different backstories on how they ended up there, but they were all just survivors of what was basically the end of the world, with the missiles being launched from the moon by Richthofen, turning the Earth into a hell-like lava-covered wasteland. The Zombies storyline for Black Ops 2 alone runs so deep, and this is barely just scratching the surface. Transit mode basically gave a free sample of the new storyline approach that Treyarch was taking on the Zombies mode. The DLC for Black Ops 2 felt more like Treyarch just flexing their development skills and showing off what others couldn't do. They didn't just feel like a desperate money grab. The fact that they all had their own storyline and lore that was tied to the overall Zombies storyline was a huge reason that the Zombies of Black Ops 2 would go on to be so loved and remembered. And then Treyarch dropped Mob of the Day. This is where Zombies really locked in. You're dropped into the Alcatraz prison, playing as 4 criminals who are already dead, but they don't know it. This map would introduce the Afterlife mode, In the Afterlife, you're limited as far as what you can interact with, but you're able to shock generators and open different paths to help your teammates. Matching the current style of Black Ops 2, making things insanely dramatic, the ending to Mob of the Dead requires one player to be sacrificed and die in order for the others to escape. Similar to the campaign, like I said earlier, Mob of the Dead reiterates the idea that not all stories have a good ending. Remember, Zombies was just supposed to be a side mode. Mob of the Dead did away with the repetitive, small enclosed area, round-based, arcade-style zombies mode. And once zombies went this dark, there truly was no going back. Just when you think zombies couldn't get any crazier, Treyarch decides to undo the entire storyline. Origins takes you back to World War I, and casually reveals that everything you thought you understood about zombies was only one version of reality. This is where we see the signature Treyarch touch. There is giant robots walking around the map that will crush you, elemental staffs that take a million different YouTube tutorials to build, and an Easter egg that was so complex it literally felt like a school project. Origins was truly the ultimate test of commitment, which makes playing it a bit annoying because of its complexity, but it rewards you and gives you a huge sense of accomplishment. The Origins map greatly recontextualized the entire Zombies storyline, revealing that the characters we followed for years were part of a much larger cycle that we didn't even think would exist. And that's the common pattern we see in Black Ops 2 Zombies as a whole. It stopped being about how long you could survive, and it made players think a bit deeper about why this keeps happening and what the ultimate goal really is. And that would become the expectation for the future of Zombies going forward. We see the same problem arise from Zombies, campaign, and multiplayer. Treyarch set the bar way higher than they anticipated. While initially it won the players over, making an insanely successful game, it would indirectly be the exact reason the entire franchise would fall. Think of it this way: you're Black Ops 2, running a race, with the other runners being your competitors like Black Ops 1, Halo, and Modern Warfare. You can pace yourself and spread out your energy throughout the race. While you might fall behind initially, in the end you're still gonna come out first, since you conserved your energy. That's the exact mistake Black Ops 2 made. They used all of their resources, energy, and ideas in one game. Instead of spreading it out with gradual improvement, it was all done in the same game, which isn't exactly possible to recreate over and over again. It didn't ruin Call of Duty exactly, but it ruined everyone's ability to just accept good enough.